drop on us. So, welcome everybody to 317 Business Academy. This is really kind of an interactive webinar each Wednesday. And today I'm so excited to present my dear friend and one of the 317 mentors, Beth Pickel, who is an exceptional sales leader. And she is going to talk to us today about a topic called Seal the Deal. And so, Beth, I thank you so much for being here. Welcome, Jeremy. Welcome, Steve. And fire away, Beth.
Okay, so this is what I was telling Tracy. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about because when I first started in sales, can't believe it's been like 30 years ago now. I'm giving away my age, but I used to say all the time, I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson. And I think what people mean when they say that is I'm not pushy, I'm not obnoxious, all the things that we've experienced with a bad salesperson. But if you've ever had an experience with a good salesperson when you really needed help, we're doing some home improvements around here. And I'm like, oh, I wish I had a salesperson like me helping me because they want your expertise. They want your help. They don't want to be sold to, but they want you to help them figure out what they want and need. And so a good experience with a qualified salesperson can really be a positive experience. And it's so easy to refer those people because of the feeling that they leave you with. So, but I have learned how to be good at sales. And so, a lot of those people who are just naturally good at sales, they don't really know how to help you get better. And they don't really know how to help you get your people to get better if you're leading people, because it just comes naturally to them. They don't realize why they're good at it. I know why I'm good at it. I know what I do differently. And so I can help people level up those skills. And so that's one of the things that I would say is every sales organization has a system, whether it's, a step-by-step process and what is an acronym, any of those kind of things. We've all got sales systems, but I think most people treat that like a checklist. So they're going through the steps like, okay, did that, did that, did that. They don't look at it like a skill set. And that's what I want to challenge you to do is I want to challenge you to think about what are the skills necessary to be good at my job, and how can I practice and get better at those skills? NFL players still practice. They do drills so that they can get better at those individual skills. They work out so that they can build up those muscles and that muscle memory so that when they get in the game, what they're doing is just second nature. They're not thinking about, what happens, what do I do after I catch this ball? Some of them look like they are, but the really good ones, they just know what to do when they get that ball. And it's because they have practiced so much and their skills are leveled up. So that's what I want to talk to you about doing. So we've all heard the saying, always be closing. I want to talk though about, I'm going to use that acronym, we love acronyms, of CLOSE, and talk about what are the skills behind that step of the process and how do you practice that and get better at it so that when you put them all together, you're really effective at what you do. One of the things that I want to challenge you about is the pre-sale though, being a student of your craft. And don't just look at people who are in exactly your industry, but look at other people that you can listen to and that you can learn from to perfect those skills that you may be not quite so good at. So let's jump in and start with the first C. Actually, before I do that, I want to tell you a story about when I went out with one of my salespeople, and he had been working with another leader and was struggling some with his closing rate. And so I went with him on one of his appointments and I ran the appointment. And when we got back outside, I asked him, I said, so tell me what you saw me do that was different than what you've seen anybody else do. And immediately he said, well, the biggest thing is that you seem like the whole time you were trying to make them feel smart. And the people that I've been going out with have been trying to make themselves look smart. And I thought that was a really good everything we're going to be talking about is how you're going to use your skills to make them feel smart, to make them feel empowered, to make them feel important. And, we've all heard that saying. Just imagine everybody's wearing a sign across their forehead that says, make me feel important. But we don't really talk a lot about how to do that. So that's what we're going to talk about. So the first C is for connect. And John Maxwell has a really great book where he says, the name of it is Everyone Communicates, Few People Connect. And again, I want you to think about what's the purpose behind the step, and that will lead you to what is the skill that I need to develop in order to do that. The purpose behind connecting with somebody is to find common ground, number one. Number two, it is to make them feel comfortable with you. And then the third thing is to get them paying attention to what comes next, which means you've got to get their head involved in what you're doing. And a lot of times when we're out, if you're out cold calling or you're running an appointment and you're at their office, 5 seconds before they were talking to you, they were handling another phone call, fighting another fire, whatever it is. And it doesn't matter how good you are at all the other steps if they're not listening. So the first thing you've got to do is get them engaged. And if you can't do that, you might want to reschedule. I mean, seriously, if they're not listening, don't move forward. So the steps are very important to do in order and complete in order. And so don't be afraid to say, I showed up one day and somebody was having to fire someone. There was a lot of things going on. And I just said, you know what? This seems like a really bad time for you. Why don't we reschedule when, it'll be a better time for us to sit down and have this conversation? She was very appreciative. I had driven over there, so she didn't want to be the one to waste my time, but it would have wasted my time more to have given her my pitch when I knew her mind wasn't in it, because people are never going to be more likely to say yes than when you make that first offer. So, what are some ways you can get really good at connecting? So years ago, the hardest job I've ever had, I managed a kiosk out at the mall. And I always tell everybody that's in sales that unless you've gotten the hand from a 3-year-old in a stroller, your job has not been that hard. So that was truly the hardest thing I've ever done. And honestly, I think everybody in sales ought to have to do it for a day, and you'll be so much better at what you do. But we had seconds to catch their attention and get them engaged with us. The best salesperson I've ever worked with worked for me there. And that is what he did. He would walk alongside them. And when they said, nope, I'm not interested, we're going to dinner, he would say, oh, where are you going? He would engage them. And it was the most fascinating thing to me, because within minutes, he would be walking them over to the cash register selling a timeshare vacation. That is not easy. And they're laughing and cutting up with him and calling him by his first name. So if you're in person and you can comment, I mean, obviously, if somebody came into my office right now, they'd comment about the ducks. Looks like you got your ducks in a row, something to that effect. Virtually or over the phone, you may have a little bit more difficulty with that, but you need to find a way to connect. Ask them what they did over the weekend, ask them about their family, whatever the case may be, but don't skip that step. And if your sales cycle requires you going back again, don't skip that step again. One woman, again, I walked in, she was very distracted. The first time we talked about her son and him playing football. When I showed up the second time, she was just like in crisis mode. But I said, so how's football season going for your son? Instantly, she had all the time in the world. She was focused on me, and it made her feel important because I remembered what was important to her the last time. So connecting. The way you exercise that muscle is you are going to learn to connect with everybody you pass. We used to have a rule in one of the organizations I was, they come within 30 feet of me, 3 feet of me, I'm going to talk to them. And when I was working out at the mall, I did that. Everyone that walked by me, I never will forget. I walked into the restroom one day and there was a lady in there cleaning it. And I said, "Hey, how's your day going today?" Scared her half to death. She's used to being invisible. Nobody talks to her. So, but you need to learn to engage people, whether it's in the line at the grocery store, if you're checking out somewhere, learn how to connect with them, make them feel seen and heard. And you will be amazed at how easy, if you do that in uncomfortable situations, it will be so natural and easy to do when you're in a more comfortable situation with someone. The other thing that you can do there is to learn to not respond or give information until you've at least asked one more question. So when you say to somebody, "So how was your weekend?" and they answer you, instead of telling them how yours was, ask them a specific question about what they just said. Learn to respond to what people say to you, and you will be shocked. You'll realize how few times we do that, and that really makes people feel seen. The second thing before the second step is to learn. The L is for learn. But before that, I want to talk about a transition statement. One of the challenges when you get really good at connecting is that you can go into a situation and you're talking with someone, you start talking football or you start talking whatever, and way too much time goes by. When my first appointment with somebody is going to last 20 to 30 minutes, I tell them that on the front end, and I respect their time, but I know how much time I need to present and close them. So I'm going to be sure that I leave myself that time. And what happens a lot of times that keep people from connecting with somebody is that in their mind, they're not paying attention to the conversation. They're thinking, how do I turn this to why I'm here? How do I switch this around to the sale? And here's how you do that with a transition statement. "Tracy, that's fascinating. I'm having a great time talking to you about that, but I want to respect your time. So let me ask you a couple of questions." I say it the same way every time, the same statement every time, because it's a new person every time. But and everyone is going to appreciate you saying, "I want to respect your time." So, and then get to business. So that transition statement is important. The other thing it does is, like I said, it allows me, when I'm doing that connection, to really focus on that person, because I'm not looking for an opportunity to change the conversation. I know where that's going to come from. So make sure you have a transition statement. So the second one is learn. And I love this as opposed to one of the organizations I would called it Discover. And it was funny because I would see my agents that I was trying to train. It was like an inquisition. They were asking questions, but it was like they were peppering them with questions. This step is an opportunity for you to learn what is important to them, to ask them questions about what's your biggest challenge in your business right now. And you're not just paying attention to their answers. You are wanting to pay attention to their answers because you're going to discover what their pain point is. Where can you solve a problem for them? But you're also wanting to listen and learn, how do they communicate? Because you want to become a parrot. You want to meet them where they are. Are they giving you a lot of detail? Are they telling you every little thing about what they need? Or are they getting to the point and cutting to the chase? Because the way they communicate with you is going to very likely be the way they want you to communicate with them. And you're wanting to listen to what they aren't saying as much as what they are. So I do employee benefits. If I'm talking to an employer and all he's talking about is the bottom line and employees turnover, and that, he can't stand training people because then they just leave, then I'm picking up on the fact that making his employees feel valued is probably not real important to him. May not have a real high opinion of his employees. I'm going to want to talk about him saving money and how this is going to cut costs here, cut costs there. It's going to save him from having to train so many people because benefits help with retention. So I'm going to speak his language by really listening and learning what's important to him. You're going to want to ask really good questions. And this is where, going back to the pre-sale, you need to know your market. A lot of time gets spent on overcoming objections. And the truth is, if you will really learn to be good at your job, there shouldn't be that many objections. Because typically in most industries, the objections are the same. The concerns, there's going to be those specific things that they're dealing with. But if it's a pretty broad objection, cost is something, benefit cost is something that is I'm going to address that in every single appointment, but their words are always more powerful than yours. So if you know that that's something that is probably a concern to them, it is still worth asking them, because remember, you're there to make them feel smart, not make yourself look smart. And so when you ask, a lot of businesses like yours are facing this challenge. Is that true for you as well? It does kind of let them know, okay, she's tuned in, she gets me. But then I'm listening to him. Then when it comes back, I always say, whatever you say can and will be used against you at the point of close. When you're able to use their words back at them and say, well, I heard you say that this is a concern for you. So can you see how this would be a solution? That is going to carry more weight with them than your words. So the next letter is O, and that is offer. This does not mean immediately offer them your services or your products. It means offer them feedback first. Make sure you heard them correctly. So what I hear you saying is that these are some of the challenges you face with past distributors. And make sure that you're hearing their concerns correctly. And then, is there anything that I missed? Anything else you think is important for me to know? Then you want to go into offering them solutions for their challenges. And again, it's a really important to use their words and say, one of the things that I heard you mention is this. Here's how I address that. The next letter is S, and that is for support. You want to support your solutions with stories and examples. People make decisions based on emotion, but they support those decisions with facts. So it's really easy. I can sit there and tell somebody, stories about how our cancer policy paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for somebody, and, all those kind of things. But I need to give them facts to back that up so that they don't, when those emotions pass, change their mind. So you want to be sure that you're supporting what you're saying, supporting your offer with the facts that they need and the stories that will pull on both of those things. So you want to meet that emotional need and the facts as well. Then the last letter is E, and that is for enact. And the definition of enact is to put something into action. You need to know, what is the next step in your sales process? So for me, the next step in my sales process is to come in and do an employee meeting. So in order to be prepared to enact that, to take action, I need to know, number one, before I ever walk in the door, what are my next 2 available dates? So that I can say, so I have Tuesday at 10 o'clock, or I have Thursday at 3 o'clock next week. Which of those works best for you? Now, to be honest, I'm probably already going to know the answer to that question, because one of the things I'm going to ask is, tell me what a typical day is like. But back in the learning stage, I'm going to ask, tell me what a typical day is like. When is everybody most likely to be in the office? So that way I can say, well, I heard you say that most everybody is out of the office and in the field by 8 o'clock. So why don't we set a time for me to come in at 6:30? Would a Tuesday or a Thursday be better? Because, for example, in my business, a lot of times they will tell me, oh, this isn't going to work because I can't ever get anybody together, because they're not assuming that I'm willing to come out at 6:30 in the morning. So again, I know that, so I cover that objection before they voice it. The other thing that you're going to need to know is, what do you need to have with you so that you can take that next step? So if it's a contract, then you're going to say, I've got the contract with me, love to go ahead and get that filled out. And I'm old school. I think the major minor close is a great way to go. So, for example, what I say to them is, well, so the next step would be for us to schedule an employee meeting. We can either do Tuesday or Thursday of next week. 6:30 sounds like it would work good for you. All I need to get us started is your tax ID number. Do you have that handy? If they say yes, they have that handy, or no, I'll need to get that from my administrator. Either one of those answers tell me we're moving forward. Does that make sense? So you're going to want to give them an opportunity or call to action, something to do, because otherwise, if you get silent at that point, the message you're sending them, if you don't give them an action step to take, the message you're sending them is people think about this and then make a decision. And you don't want that. So if I stop talking at the end of when I'm going through the offer with them, then what I get is, well, that sounds great. Let me look over the information and I'll let you know. And I don't want that. I want us moving forward right then. I want the next date scheduled. Whatever the next step is in your sales process, you want to have them take some action where they're giving you a yes, giving you an answer. And I always say, I'm great with a yes. And I've even said this in a meeting, when somebody will say, well, I think this sounds good. Let me think about it or whatever. I say, you know what? I have a spot for a yes and a spot for a no. I don't have a spot for a maybe. And they laugh and I laugh. And then I say, tell me what other information you need to help you make your decision. Because, if I walk out that door, they're not magically just going to know, oh, okay, well, here's the answer. They're not going to be sitting there after lunch one day and go, yeah, let's do this, So if there's something else they need to know, then I want to be sure that I leave them with the right information. And if they say, well, I don't know, if you could just leave me with some information, I want to look over it, then I'll say, that's not a problem. Tell me what information you need in order to help you make that decision. What would keep you from moving forward today so I can be sure I leave you the right information? So, because when I walk out of that situation, if I have anything other than a yes or no, if I have a no, I want to know why. I want to know what was the reason they said no. If I have a maybe, I need to know what the next step is. So I'll leave them information and I'll say, we're on Wednesday right now. I'd say, would it be better if I followed up with you on Friday or Monday? So we always have a next step. You want to take some action to move them forward. So going back through the steps, I would, and talking about how do you exercise those things, we sell every day. Even if it's when if you want to go somewhere for dinner that your spouse doesn't normally want to go and you're trying to talk them into that, or you're negotiating what movie you're going to go see, think about this in those terms. If you walk in the door and they've had a hectic day and you're coming flying in a few minutes late and you are talking about where you're going to go to dinner, that's not a good way to approach that. If you walk in and you take 2 minutes to say, so, how was your day today? What was the best part of your day today? And you just take those 2 minutes to connect and decompress, then you're going to be able to make those decisions better. And so again, it's putting these principles into practice in our everyday life so that it becomes very, natural to us, asking people questions. No, people don't ask enough questions these days. I think we could have a lot less political arguments if I told my boys, I was like, okay, we're going to do something new. You have to be able to state somebody's position before you're allowed to disagree with it. You've at least got to understand it before you can disagree with it. And if you think about it in those terms, if you're really trying to understand people and have that productive conversation, and you do that on a regular basis, then when you're sitting there in that selling situation, those things are going to be very natural for you. So, what questions do you have?
You guys can just come right off mute and fire away. That was awesome. My hand hurts. Oh, no. That was great, Beth. Hmm.
Yeah, that's great information. Thank you so much. I'll have to say your first statement is exactly what I told Tracy when she and I met. Is I am not a salesman whatsoever. I never have claimed to be, and I wish I was one of those that could sell ice to an Eskimo for sure. But I love the first three letters, three or four letters. The hardest one for me is the fifth one, is the next step. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, if you say no, I like the part where give me the reason why it is a no. I think that's very, very important. And the maybe, like, what information do you need to get that to a yes? Or what did
Yeah.
I not bring? I like that. I think is the, I guess I shouldn't say that it's the most important because they're all important, but that's the probably one that I struggle with is that very final piece to bring it to the next level.
Yeah, and I think if you really get out of your own way and I mean truly if you get to a point to where you want what is best for every client that you deal with. And if that's not me, that's okay because there's plenty of business out there for all of us. And so, if you truly people sense that sincerity in you. And if you say to them, if there's something that I'm not bringing to the table that you need, if you can tell me what that is, if I can't do it, I can help you find someone who can. And you're sincere about that,
That's good.
then even if you miss out on that sale, that information is going to help you to be better prepared for the next one.
That's great. Yeah, that's good. I've probably given you my hand as well in the kiosk in the mall.
If you had
But
ever told me I would be doing that, I would have thought you had lost your mind. But it actually was truly one of the best experiences I've ever had. It taught me a lot. And I had one instance, there were two that really stand out that taught me a lot about this process. I had one girl, so I started out helping out a friend at the little booth in Bass Pro where they sell the little mini vacations. And then I was about to quit and they said, well, we need you to manage one. I'm like, well, okay, I've never done that before. But I had a girl come by the booth in Bass Pro and she said, oh no, she said, my husband will kill me if I ever do another one of those. And I said, you're kidding. I said, you sound like you've got a great story. You got to tell me. And she stopped. She starts telling me about basically they kidnapped her and took her somewhere and wouldn't take her back and wouldn't take no. And her husband walked up while we were having this conversation. And I was like, I cannot believe they did that. I said, my husband would have punched somebody. So we're having this whole conversation. And then after they finished telling me the story, I said, I really hate it when they do stuff like that because now you don't get a great deal on a vacation. I don't get to buy my kid new shoes. We all lose. And they started laughing and they bought a vacation. So,
Nice.
that's awesome.
Wow.
and then, and the other one was when I was training my salespeople when we were out in the mall, and this mother and her daughter were walking through, and the guy said, can I come get entered in our drawing? And she said, oh, we can't. She's graduating this weekend, and we've got to find a dress. And he was going to let her walk by, and they started to keep walking. I was like, oh my gosh, are you graduating from high school or college? And she told. And they came over, we started talking, and I sold her a vacation to go on for her graduation present. The thing is, if you connect with people, they trust you, and it changes everything around. So, yeah.
True. It's very true. My son, he worked at the Wyndham spot and
Ah,
at the Island in Pigeon Forge.
yeah.
And I was like, man, you're crazy for doing that because he goes, maybe because I've learned so many moves and phrases, just like you said, connection is so important.
Yes.
Authenticity. I've been using that word for the past 6 months, like it's going out of style, being authentic,
Yeah.
because people see that. So that's good. That's good.
They do. And especially when you're in a business like you're in, there are a lot of people out there doing what you do. There's a lot of people out there doing what I do. And so you are the difference maker. And that is something that you need to be confident in. And that is a selling point. I tell people your insurance is only as good as your agent, and they don't come better than me because I care about you as much after you buy the policy as I do before you do. And people love that.
That's good.
Yeah, I think it starts with the heart, and realizing that selling is not bad. It's not dirty. It's not gross. It can be, you know, depending on
Yeah.
where the person's coming from with it. But if we're truly helping, if we're going into it with an intention to help others, even if it means they're not going to do business with us, we know we're doing the right thing and it's going to go a long way with others. I think
Yeah.
it's so important for us to learn these skills, Beth. This is so great because, you know, I'm looking at Jeremy, I'm looking at Steve and myself, you know, if we have hopes or a vision in our businesses of building a sales team, we have to know it first. Like it starts with us.
Yeah, it really is important. If you're going to have other people selling for you, you've got to know, because very few people come just being natural salespeople. You know, I mean, there's things, and like I said, the ones who are very bad at teaching it because they don't know what they're doing. And I had a girl, one of the businesses I was in, we were doing booths out at the mall. And she was like great at it. She scheduled all these appointments, sold all this product. And I was like, what do you do? And she said, I just asked them if they want to try some lotion. And, you know, I'm like, no. And I went out there and watched her. And there was a lot of things she was doing different. And the connection was a big part of it, you know. But a lot of times people don't see what they do. And the problem is, the other thing you got to remember is, and this is really important in sales, especially if you're doing repetitive sales, you need to know what you're doing, because there's going to be times that you stop doing some of it. And you're going to think you're doing the same thing as always. But if your results start slipping, you've got to be able to go back and do a checkup on yourself and go, okay, wait a minute. Am I doing this, and this? Because where I really see people who are like selling the same thing over and over to people, they are excited about their products in the beginning. I mean, I practice the way that I talk about our policies, and it seems like that would make me sound more canned, but it actually doesn't. But it makes me sound better, because once you've said it 1,000 times, I don't care how great you think it is. If you're not really paying attention, it's going to sound less exciting. You become rote about it. But when I talk about our accident policy now, I'm like, it's going to pay you $1,500 when you're admitted to the hospital, $300 a day while you're in there. It has a $60,000 accidental death benefit with it for free. It would have paid us thousands of dollars when my kids were all playing football. I say it the same way every time because I want it to sound the same way every time. And if I'm not careful, then I'm just reciting something and it doesn't have the same emotion behind it. But if you don't have that skill set to check up on yourself, you'll start to slip in areas. We've all had that where we're like, I used to do that and it really worked. Why'd I quit doing that? We just do.
Yeah, it's so good. Steve?
Yes, Beth, it was a great presentation. Thank you. I learned quite a bit there. I could tell storytelling is a big part of what you do. Even that last scenario about your kids in football, how much you would
Yeah.
have saved. I mean,
Yeah.
that's very good. And that's definitely somewhere I can try to hone my skills a little bit better. I think I assume a lot, that people are understanding what I'm saying. So in my business, it seems like when I get in front of a prospect, they're almost halfway closed because I wouldn't be there unless there was an interest. Don't have to convince them, much. I've just got to be the best that I can be and put the best foot forward and face on my company and products. And so one thing, I'm sure this would be another Zoom call, but getting to them, okay, and finding them. So the prospecting piece, what
Yeah.
would be the best advice for finding or getting the appointments?
Yeah, I think getting to the decision maker, we call them, is probably a challenge for a lot of people. I mean, for me, I do a lot of business with businesses, which this is the first business I've been in that was B2B. I've always been B2C. And so getting to the right person is I'm sure, a challenge for you. And then also making sure
Yes.
this is a step I skip sometimes. I think I'm talking to the decision maker and get all the way through, and I find out I'm not talking to the final decision maker.
Right.
And that's frustrating.
Happens all the time.
Yes, because then I've given that person that I'm talking to enough information to be dangerous. They
Yeah.
can get me a no, but they can't get me a yes.
Yeah.
And so that is one thing I would say is make sure that and a question that I'll ask is there anyone else that needs to be involved that before a final decision can be made?
Mm-hmm.
And, because, and then I'll say a lot of times, well, why don't we set a time when the three of us can talk?
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to get some information from you so that I can come back prepared to really answer all your questions. I honestly, a lot of times that doesn't work because their job is to keep me from getting to the final decision maker.
Kind of like
So,
a gatekeeper role.
yeah. And so one thing I would say is, are there opportunities where those decision makers are more likely to be in the room? And I would think outside the box that way. So like, let's say, if there's an industry that does a lot of business with you, see if they have a conference or convention or meeting that you can go and set up at where you're going to be more likely to get in touch with the decision makers.
Mhm.
So for me, like I just recently went and did set up a table at a credit union meeting because the people that were going to be there were the decision makers. And even if they pushed me off to the HR person,
Mhm.
it was them asking the HR person to meet with me,
Wow.
not me coming in cold. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I would say is I would figure out what rooms are those people that I'm trying to get at in, because then when they
Yeah.
see me in that room, they see me a different way than if
Mhm.
I'm coming in cold calling. So, the other thing is, I think in your business, having worked out at the mall, I can tell you that that people that probably use your services know they need them.
Yeah.
They don't know how bad they need you because I knew the booth that we had for that particular job was horrible. And I mean, like, I knew that we needed to do something different, but I mean, this is a big company I was working for. They wouldn't listen to me. But like one thing that I did, they came in, they're like, y'all are selling, we had a great package to Disney and we were selling more of those packages than anybody else. You know why? Because I went to the Disney store and I bought a Mickey and a Minnie and I put them up on the top of the booth. And every time kids walked by, they were like, Mommy, Mommy. And they would stop and talk to me and I would send them to Disney. And so that booth, that display, just making just a little bit of a tweak to it, having somebody that knows how to stop people and get that, get people to
Right.
pay more attention to your display is huge. And
Yeah.
so those are the kinds of stories that can make somebody go, oh, this guy gets me. He's not like
Mhm.
everybody
Yeah.
else. So
That's
Yeah.
great.
Again, another good story. My first what I call pure sales job was selling printers at Best Buy.
yeah.
And yeah, I was employed by Lexmark. And so they had me go in on a Sunday and approach people to see if they would like to buy a printer. And so talk about connecting, you know, that was the name of the game on that.
Funny, I will tell you something that one of my stories I've told for years is about buying a printer at Best Buy. I went into Best Buy to buy a printer because at the time, the job that I was in, I did a lot of flyers and price lists and special sheets and stuff like that. I cannot tell you how many times I was getting ready to walk out the door to go to a meeting and I'm screaming at the printer, print faster. I needed it
Yeah.
to be done and it took forever. And I went into Best Buy and I was so frustrated. And the guy comes over, he says, can I help you? And I said, yes, I need a printer that will print these things, flyers. I told him what I did. And I said, I don't know why mine takes so long, but I mean, I would have gone in there and spent the least amount of money possible on a
Sure.
printer. What he said, well, it sounds like the printer that you have is printing photo quality. You need less of a printer that will print what you need all the time faster. And I was like, yes, I still remember the guy's name.
Yeah.
His name is Mike. And that was like
Sure.
100 years ago. But
Yeah.
If I cannot tell you how many times I told people, well, if you need anything, go see him
Yeah.
because he knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
People will pay more. They're not always looking for the best. They're most of the time, truthfully, they're not looking for the best price. They're looking for the best value. And the best
Sure.
value is to get them what they need
Mm-hmm.
and what they want
Mm-hmm.
for a good price from
Mm-hmm.
someone who's going to take care of all the details for them.
Mm-hmm.
And what you got to do is convince them that's you.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't be afraid. I mean, right now I got a quote on a home improvement project. One of them is $7,000. One of them is $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is my home. We're talking about a front door. I don't mind spending $7,000. You just got to tell me why.
Mm.
Why would it be better to do 7 than 3?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I don't want somebody who is going to be like, well, you could do this or you could do that. I want somebody that's going to say, listen,
Here's the
what I've
difference.
heard you say, you plan on being here forever. You want a door that's going to look nice 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I would do this. And I'd be like, done.
Sure. Great.
Yep.
Awesome.
This was so good. We're going to wrap up soon. So if either of you have a question that you want to ask of Beth, like make sure we get that out. But I'm going to say one thing. I took copious notes here, and I am strong with the C. I need to work on the L, the O, the S, and the E. I'm pretty good with the E, but the E's no good if I'm not great at the L and the O and the S. So yeah, I need to get better about asking great questions, learning about them, and then restating and supporting them with the facts and the stories to back up. So this was so good. Thank you. Guys, do you have any last questions for Beth before we wrap it up?
I just had one quick question on the transition statement that you mentioned. I respect your time.
Mm.
However, how did you develop? Do you have different scenarios? I guess it's situational that come about,
It's a
or
little bit situational, but I would say probably 98% of the time that's what I say. I mean, we're
okay,
sitting there chit-chatting because everybody's busy. So it's applicable anytime. So if you say to somebody, you are hilarious, I could sit here and talk to you all day long, but I want to be respectful of your time. So let me ask you some questions about what you need today. That is going to be that's a compliment in any scenario.
very good.
You mentioned John Maxwell earlier, Beth.
Yes.
Is there any other authors or books that you could recommend that would help us on this journey?
Honestly, this is an oldie but a goodie. I would go back and listen to some of Jim Rohn's.
Mm.
He is one, it's Rohn. He
Yeah.
is one of the best sales trainers that I've ever heard. And I still, with all the new stuff and all the new people I listen to, a lot of what I do and a lot of what I've learned came from him.
Great. Thank you.
Beth, thank you so much. Your energy and obvious passion for what you do just comes right through the screen, and that's hard to do on Zoom. So thank you so much for giving of your time. I did put your email address in the chat. So is it okay if people want to talk with you further for them to email you? And is that the best way for them to contact you?
Absolutely. Yeah, that'll be great.
I would highly encourage that. So for those of you on this call and those who are going to watch the replay, so thank you so much. Hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Beth. And
Thank you.
talk soon.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.